Right, MADAC now. Yeah, three powerful words, which in themselves form a statement about action and about climate change. So I'm going to kind of lead you through a story that started about this time last year, and it has led me and a lot of other designers on a kind of long climate change journey. So here we go. So a protest for the digital generation. So as we all know, our world clock is running out pretty fast. As the last speaker just said, we've probably got about 10 years. In some ways, that's quite optimistic. In other ways, it's a little bit pessimistic, but that's the reality of what we're facing right now. There is something really, really wrong with the world. It'd be great to be able to go back. This was one of the web pages for our website, 404. Let's go back, but sadly we can't go back. Climate change is climate crisis, one of the bigger challenges we're going to face now and for our kind of children's generation. So yeah, as I said, it feels like probably about 12 months ago, there were big fires in Australia. Every year Australia has bushfires, but for some reason the bushfires of kind of 2019 and 2020 were bigger than they've ever been before. Hectares and hectares of bush were burning, and you can see from these photos it was pretty dramatic. This could actually be the bushfires could be seen from space, which is pretty incredible. And also the bushfires, or the smoke from the bushfires, could be seen from New Zealand. One day I was sitting there with my young son. He was 1 and a bit, and he said, "Dad, why is it grey outside? Why can't we see the sun?" And it was about 10 o'clock in the morning, and it was what should have been quite a nice Christchurch day, but the whole sky was coloured in this kind of grey fog. I explained to him, hey, there are bushfires, or there are fires in Australia 2,700 kilometres away, and they've drifted across to us. And as all kind of 1-year-olds say, they keep asking questions, and he was like, Dad, why, Dad, why? So kind of hold that thought, and I was like, well, what can I do? How can I, as one person, create some action, create some change? What can I do? As a graphic designer, as that kind of intro said, I am a graphic designer. I've been doing it for 18 years. I believe, design can change things, and also can have a lot of power if used in the right way. Throughout history, people have used posters or design to create action. Sometimes it's motivational action. So in 1939, to help keep the British public calm with the onset of war, these were posters were put up which said, "Keep calm and carry on." They were distributed everywhere, and to help keep the British public keep going, stay calm, keep carrying on. And then this obviously has been reintroduced for COVID and things like that, but it's still a very strong message. Posters can also be used in a political situation. So before Obama got elected to office, there was a famous street artist who put together a poster. The original poster said progress on it, but then once it was shown to Obama's team, they said, actually, we would love to use this word hope. This became a symbol of his campaign, and over 350,000 of these posters were printed. Stickers, it's been parodied everywhere, and it's probably one of the most famous pieces of street art that has become art, or become a political piece to kind of stand for. And then obviously environmental or protests are a great place where posters and action come together. In this case, Greta, I'm sure everyone I'm talking to today knows about. She went outside Parliament and said, hey, I'm not going to go back to school until you listen to what I'm saying. She was 15 at the time. And this has kind of led her to do a lot more things and become very, very prominent figure for protests around the world. But she is a pretty inspiring person. So the question was for me, how can I act? How can I, from little old New Zealand or New Zealand on the bottom of the world, next to Australia, seeing what's happening to my friends over in Australia, this big bushfire. How can I help? What can I do? One thing I noticed, especially in this digital age, is that social media feeds are becoming the new picket line. So what I mean by this is what people are choosing to share, what they like, what they stand for in this COVID world, when a lot of us are locked down or locked in and we can't get out there. It's what we put in our social feeds that allow us to kind of show who we support politically, what we stand for, and some of our values, especially around climate change and what can be done as a generation to get together and kind of fight against it and share the message. So hold that thought, because that's pretty important on how this campaign came across. So as a designer, as I said, I was at home. I explained to my young son about fires in Australia. What could I do? I talked about the history of posters being a kind of a way that designers go to when they're in need of kind of sharing a message. So the next day, I was still kind of thinking about what I could do, and this popped up on Instagram, which is like the go-to for designers these days, and a great way to kind of see what other designers are doing. A notable Australian designer called Christopher Doyle did this poster, Advance Australia Fair. Very, very simple. He's taken the name, the words from their national anthem, and taken fair as with a slightly different meaning, as in what is the government currently doing, and how can they fight against protests against climate change. He put this poster up, made it available for free, which is the key thing. He made it for free, and this became quite widely shared. And a lot of our designers in Australia went down and used that as a kind of a symbol for protesting against climate change. Then another designer, Paul Garbett, another well-known Australian designer, kind of had the same idea based off what Chris Doyle had done. He said, well, actually, I want to join, I want to be part of this, I want to share a slightly different message. So he took these great lyrics from Midnight Oil, how can you sleep while beds are burning, and took some ashes that were falling from the sky. That's how bad it is, how bad it was over in Australia, and used that to make this beautiful poster. He also ended with a couple of strong words, which were climate action now. Climate action now. So 3 words, very important. So we're going full circle back to what can I do? So in New Zealand with my son, I'm thinking, well, hey, how can I create something to kind of, lend my support, not in Australia, in New Zealand, but, I can do something digitally. So I keep looking at these words, climate action now. I then commissioned my 1.5-year-old to help me out and print out a bit of type, quite pretty basic bit of typography, and got the wee guy scribbling. And then with the use of a crayon and a bit of kind of coaxing him how to kind of colour it in a bit, climate action now became Made Act Now. And Made Act Now became what I would call like a catch cry or a way to engage a community. So mate has a few meanings over in New Zealand and Australia. So mate can mean a friend, also, a kind of a friend next door or a friend overseas. Australians have this great saying, which is "G'day, mate," which you could take slightly tongue-in-cheek, but also it's really important because it's like actually they are our mates, and how can we help them? So Made Act Now was a call to, hey, mate, friends around the world to act now. So join in and help and become part of a movement. So I thought, well, actually, let's follow what those guys have done. Put my poster up on Instagram and Facebook. And I gave it away for free. Interesting enough, I share a lot about design, a lot about kind of climate change on Facebook with my friends. But most of the time, my design stuff, my friends aren't really that into, because it's just, oh yeah, that's pretty, it looks great, lovely design. But when I shared this, because it kind of combined design and design for good and an environmental message, suddenly they started sharing this and saying, hey, Chris, this is awesome. How can we get involved? It's great that you made this available for free. And I was like, wow, this is, it's got a few likes, a few shares, it's actually got a bit of traction. I actually think if I got a big group of people together, like designers, creative artists, like a massive range of people, with the same idea of let's share the message about what's happening in Australia, and let's get everyone involved in sharing a message digitally. Can then be amplified using Instagram and social media, so more people can see it, and also they can really kind of talk about what's happening in Australia. So that was great, but as I started to look into this and saying, okay, we can talk about Australia, but Australia is only one part of the climate change or the climate crisis message. As you've already heard, there are, it is a global challenge. There are icebergs melting in Antarctica, in Arctic. They're melting at a phenomenal rate. I think it's like a 1.5 degree increase in temperature will lead to us losing millions and millions of this water, of it melting and kind of raising the sea levels. So as I said, it's not just Australia. This is a global challenge. We're losing hectares of rainforest every day for kind of many different reasons. Some to do with what you've just heard about Spotify, about streaming, about kind of carbon credits and internet and things we do. So as I started to look into this, and I started to realize actually this is very much a global challenge. And then this goes full circle because currently, as I'm doing this talk over in Sydney, poor Australia doesn't have much of a let off. They are having in the middle of some of the worst floods in probably 60, 70 years. The rivers are arriving fast in central Sydney and around that area, and it's just crazy. You go from fires to floods. So it's not just about Australia; it's about obviously a worldwide challenge. And this is also happening within that space of COVID. So I kind of thought, actually, now I'm going to reach out to as many people as I can and say, hey, can you get involved and can we be part of this? I'd love you to create a piece of communication. A poster has generally been the easiest way for designers and advertisers to get them and create a kind of single message. So I did that. I reached out to friends, people around the world and asked them to get involved. We had over 300 designers get involved from around the world, and many more who shared on their Facebook and social. And they all started to share these messages. I'm just going to show you a few of these messages that were really, really powerful. This one about global warming. Global warming is actually global warning. A really kind of simple message, which I'm sure the Americans will resonate with. Make Earth greater again. Great play on make Earth great again. So simple. Sometimes global warming, like as a kind of a statement, doesn't doesn't make sense when it's freezing outside. This was all the way from Manuel in San Francisco. Then other times, a simple, powerful graphic can say it all. An ice cream, we all love them, we all eat them. Kids love to eat them, love to drop them. I think this is a great play on kind of where we are with the world. If we don't look after it, it's melting. It's slowly going away. Other times, are we just this kind of big ice block just slowly waiting to melt away? Creative review. So a very influential design blog said these posters tackle the looming climate crisis, reminding people the urgency of addressing it and changing behaviour to do so. So design ideally can influence change, but action is the key thing, which is what I'm saying about MADAC now. This here was looking at how different statistics over time change, but water is one of the key things that holds it all together. A great animation by DIA over in New York, showing that the probable increase in temperature over the next 50 years, that kind of 1.5 degree increase is really going to put us in a bad situation. It's going to be super hot. You know, especially in New Zealand, the sea levels are going to rise, and a lot of our houses are, you know, are built around the coast, and they're not going to be around. So a great way of kind of visualizing on this. Sometimes animation, in terms of like kind of temperature and things like that, can really help to showcase a simple message. Sorry, display. Okay. Sometimes a great designer, Vince Frost, actually a British guy moving over to Australia, who's done a lot of great things with typography, put this poster out. The world doesn't need another wanky designer poster. Kind of sums it up. We don't always need more posters. We need people sharing more messages. But even great designers can forget to check their spelling. It should actually be doesn't. World doesn't need another wanky designer poster. A great thing about design and about you know, I guess working in the advertising design industry is we do spend a lot of times printing things. We do these beautiful talks, and then people print out these slides. So one of our kind of things was, you know, which this poster sums up, please consider environment before printing this poster. I think that you could say that, please consider this environment before printing this website. One of the key things we did, which I'll talk a bit more about lately, is that we made this website, and as I said, we gave all the posters away for free. But one of our big things was we want people to share these posters digitally, so there'd be no need to print them, because we didn't want to create more waste. But if you were going to go to a rally or something like that, yes, of course you could print them. But we kind of wanted to make sure the environment was a key part of what we were doing. Hey, as I said, the sea levels are rising. Eiffel Tower, great symbol for that. But what happens if it rose so much that we could only see the top of it? One of the kind of interesting things that came out of COVID was in Italy. I think so. From the lockdown, it started to the air started to become cleaner, and dolphins started to appear in Venice and swimming around the canals. So sometimes from kind of like tragedies and crisis, beautiful things can start to emerge. So we started to have this kind of sense of serenity, and this really illustrated that quite well. Other messages were more kind of like about what you can actually do. So things like join protests, ideally join a digital protest if you can't get out. Look at how you travel. One of the big things I've noticed is how much, especially in New Zealand, we are kind of stuck with using cars. Our cities are set up for cars, but in Christchurch, people push to take bikes, which is really kind of helpful. Make some noise. Vote with your money. Brands, a message gets really across to a brand when you either don't buy their product or you kind of talk out against them. There have been quite a few brands recently that have come out with different ways of doing things. We've got one, I think it's called Eco Care in New Zealand, where you can now take the plastic bottles that the product comes in, you can take that bottle back into the supermarket at a pump, and you get your kind of shampoo straight into the bottle that you already had. So there are many different ways to kind of make little changes every day. I kind of call it the kind of 1% or 2% change. Make a small change every day. It can make a big difference. Less eat meat, support local. A massive thing we were doing in New Zealand throughout lockdown, and kind of coming out from that is support local. Give our local businesses our money rather than ordering something from Auckland. We'll get it from Christchurch. So a great way of kind of keeping those messages clear. Hey, do we need a plan B? Is that plant-based? There are a lot of really kind of clever ways of using food now. There is plant that tastes like meat, but then again, you could just have plant. But yeah, there's a lot of power in eating plants. So we had this massive collection of posters that kind of shared different messages. Some about Australia, some about the kind of global climate change crisis, some about how individuals can act, and then some kind of inspiring people to do different things. So there was over 300 posters that was submitted as part of this movement. It was then about, okay, how do we activate this? So Earth Day come along in last year. So Earth Day was the 20th of April 2020. It's a global day which is recognised to celebrate Earth, and there were many different kind of activities and things that were launched. So for Mayday now, I decided Earth Day was the perfect day to launch this to the world. So we launched this. I kind of watched it launch and move around the world. We came up with this website to launch it. The website had something quite clever. Hopefully this will show on the video, where over time, as you interacted with the site, as you didn't interact with the site, the color of the site changed, basically to kind of illustrate how, if we don't act now, the world's heating up and temperatures are going to rise, and you've just got to do something because, you know, as we said, like, we're not in a very good position. So that's heated up. The idea was to interact with this website to kind of stop it from going what we call crisis mode. Our website also had every poster on it, which you could click on. You could learn a little bit more about it. You could then do one click to share it either on your Instagram feed, Facebook feed, or Twitter feed. This is basically the key mechanic behind the digital campaign. We wanted to get this shared as far and as fast as possible. So obviously all the artists were sharing their posters, the friends of the friends of the artists, the friends of the friends of the friends, the followers. Some of these designers have, so there's one that's got about 1.something million followers. You know, a lot of them have got 20, 30,000 followers. So we could really start this movement. As I kind of stated before, social media feeds are now becoming the new protest lines, especially during lockdown, when what do? You go straight to your phone, you like something, as soon as you like something, it amplifies it, you share something, more and more people can see it. Pretty simple, it's how things go viral, but for something to go viral, it needs to have, I think it needs to have stickability, but it also needs to, you know, be authentic and real. There is no brand behind this. I'm not a brand, I'm a person. And it was just a whole lot of people getting behind to share a message, firstly about Australia, then about COVID. As you can see, it was shared wide and far. Everyone doing, you know, whether it's a message they got from the poster, part of the poster, animation, creative review, you know, massive design blog, which kind of reaches further in design. Said real life protests might be on hold, but activism has moved over into the digital realm. Like, you know, as I said, people can't get out into the streets, you know, they can't do much, but they can get out and protest. So designers around the world unite in a digital protest, locked inside, but could, you know, obviously do things. To fight against climate change, Matic now gave us a digital voice to protest with, as we can't currently take to the streets to protest. Creative and form a human chain around anything, but we can still come together digitally. We found in New Zealand, we were in lockdown here, and I know a lot of the world were, being stuck in a room like I kind of am now doing this presentation. I think you can feel a little bit, you know, slightly down. So it was good to have something to get behind it from. I had a lot of feedback from designers and just, you know, general people interested in climate change and making the world better, saying, hey, this gave us something to get behind. It gave us a distraction from the day-to-day work and something for us to kind of be involved in and be part of. As you can see, there's a couple of examples there where it went into you know, different languages in terms of we had designers from Croatia. I think we had like maybe 35 or 36 countries around the world, Mexico, Brazil, Argentina. So a great flavor. So we managed to create this global conversation on climate action, but using social media and using what we all use as a way to kind of power that, you know, taking the kind of the power of a simple message of a poster, but making that global. This was then kind of, you know, obviously shared through the kind of design and press media. There were some big names. Big names are great. Big names involved in the design advertising community. They're great because they help to amplify messages. But, you know, so design blogs and things like pick it up. But I kind of think a lot of it was more about the message that was in the pieces. Some of my favorite designs were actually just from people that had kind of just wrote it and said, hey, I'd love to be involved or have seen the brief. Like local designers. We had some Aboriginal design from Australia as well. So there's a lot of really good kind of conversations. people joining in. So launched on Earth Day, and then it just grew and grew. More designers got involved. On the website, you can currently sign up to a kind of a set of values that we'd like people to follow and use and become part of. So that was cool. We got lots of coverage, got it out there, got people involved, got people seeing things. But my other thing was, how can we make some money? Like I wanted to make a little bit of money to donate to the bushfires, because it was about that. It was about kind of helping that initiative to start. But then, when I started, I did not know, none of us knew that COVID was going to come along and change our lives. So in one way, I wanted to ask people for money, but it was quite a tricky balance, because when I initially thought about it, I thought, hey, we'll sell the posters. But as I kind of went away from selling posters, because I was like, I actually want this to be shared and be something that is freely available, and not to have money as a thing that gets in the way. So I thought about it, and I thought, hey, we can make a limited edition book. This book would then profile the 200 best posters, or the 200 posters that share different, the kind of most best variety of messages. But this book would also have some essays in it that we couldn't put on the website. So this book had 3 pieces of writing in it. One piece of writing by a climate activist, who's a good friend of mine, called Adrian Taylor. He wrote this lovely piece of long form copy that talked about where we are now, in terms of we're at this kind of crossroads, at this point of no going back. How we've created this problem, but actually, if we all band together and get behind initiatives like Made Act Now, and numerous other ones, we can actually make a difference. Then the second piece of copy was a short little kind of, I guess, call to arms, which was just entitled "More Than Ever," and that was very simply about more than ever. Now is the time for us to get together. Think about what we're doing, think about our actions, and really just look to change what we do. And this was a talk about like kind of 1% and 2% changes. Little changes can have a big effect. And then the last piece was about the history of the humble poster, and how a poster can, as we said, it can be a political stand. It can help to calm people in times of war. It can be used simply as a piece of handwriting at the picket line, on social media to share a message. But the thing about posters is, words on a poster are great, but the thing that give them action is the person who is behind them. And that was one of the key things I've kind of taken away from this. One was we got a massive amount of reach. 7 million was the potential amount of people that could see this. That was from basically social media. Kind of throughout the campaign, we had over 1,000 posts and stories. Instagram stories are becoming the way to share a message, because they can get reshared and reshared and reshared. I talked a lot about the book. So the book was about finding a way to raise some money. So we sold 200 copies of the book, so raised $5,000 for the Bushfire Relief Fund. One thing I forgot to say or didn't mention about the book was all printed on eco-friendly paper. I spent a lot of time working with a paper company called BJ Bull. So the cover was all everything was recyclable. We planted 1,000 trees. So every book we planted 2 trees for that book to offset any carbon. Mainly the carbon was mainly to do with when the book was posted, because I wanted everything to be as neutral as possible. And then everything was sent out in special, I think they're like kind of cornstarch bags that could be biodegradable. So there was a lot of thought about how, like, not to kind of like just print something for the sake of printing it, but to make sure it had a reason behind it. But my kind of key thing is, obviously posters are great. This was a great way of sharing a message, sharing it digitally. But posters won't change the world. Like, we can keep doing posters, but it's not going to change anything. People's actions will. So we encourage you to share a message any way you can. Obviously, it'd be great if you share these posters, because some of them are beautifully, or most of them are beautifully designed. And they're freely available to be shared across any media or used throughout classrooms, or as a digital resource. but they're all there. madeitnow.com is where you can go to find out more. This is one of the heroes of the campaign, not me, my little boy, Leo Max. So he was the one with the crayons. He was the one who kind of said, Dad, why is there kind of grey skies outside? Why is it like this in January in Christchurch? And I said, well, mate, act now. I said, mate, hey, these are things that hopefully you're not going to have to deal with as much, because hopefully our generation will do a lot of change and do some things to actually make a difference. But hopefully this, I can help in my own little way. So time is running out, and also that's time is running out on my talk. So thank you for listening in, and thank you for